In addition to what we have just talked about, what are other kinds of injustices that climate change create?
Mm-hmm. I think from my perspective, there is I mean, we did talk about like food security, which is one of them that I mentioned. Food insecurity, that's one. There's environmental justice, so like a lot of time, a lot of like garbage dumps are where very poor people live, or specifically within the US, it's usually where Black and brown people live, people of color. They're the ones that are being affected by it. And then also a lot of times when it comes to like clean water or clean or just like a place with like vegetation, you see that there's Black people have less, they don't have as much access to um, trees or vegetation as like other folks have. And this is like a real problem when it comes to environmental justice, because when you have more tree canopy, you experience less, it kind of cools down the whole area. So in a
Mm,
neighborhood where there's a lot of trees, there in the summer specifically, it's much cooler than if there are not enough trees. And you notice that in a lot of places within the US specifically, the neighborhoods that Black and brown people live, they have less tree coverage.
yeah.
So the climate change definitely, and because of climate change, the weather is so much hotter. I mean, we are experiencing it right now in Massachusetts. It hasn't snowed. Like it has snowed maybe like 2 days, and we are in the midst of winter.
Yeah.
The weather
Yeah.
the weather is increasingly getting like warmer every winter. And then in the summers are getting hotter. So this part where like environmental justice comes to play a role, um, definitely I think climate change plays like a big role in it as well.
Yeah.
Another thing that like from my perspective is like the social and like economic inequality that climate change has
Mm,
like caused. There's a lot of people who are losing their like land, they're losing their money, they're losing everything because of climate change. Like places where they might have not needed air conditioning, now they have to install air conditioning, or they have to pay more money, pay more for electricity because they have to have their air conditioning on for a longer time during the hot days of the summer. So that's definitely one. And then from health disparities is a big one too. I think there's a lot of people like where air pollution plays such a big role, and a lot of people are like experiencing asthma or experiencing other health disparities due to like climate change and the weather getting hot, or the air being polluted with like the carbon emissions that we are releasing into the atmosphere. So
yeah.
those are a few things that I can think of like on the top of my head. Um, and then this is the last one is kind of related to everyone, like loss of biodiversity. I
Mm,
mean, we're experiencing it so much in the sea level. The animals are like dying, like as the glaciers are melting, we are losing so many of our animals who live. They call those places home. So, and then the food chain is gets disrupted. So there's a lot of very important um like these are like important issues that we need to work on, but I think people forget sometimes that these are being caused by us, like human
yeah.
beings,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
causing this. This is not something natural that happens. So, and we can prevent it. It's just that we don't really want to. Like we care more about money. I think the 1%, they care more about the money than they do about the future of humanity. I wouldn't say the future of the planet because I think the planet will be able to live and
Yeah.
survive. Nature will always find a way, but it will be the future of humanity and people.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about like climate change's impact on like girls and women specifically? especially
Mhm.
in the Middle East and in the US.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we live in a patriarchal society. That's something very, like, I wish it was a matriarchy, but it's not. Um, and in like a patriarchy, we know that, especially like in the US, capitalism is um, very prominent. And the reason that capitalism is surviving is a big part of it is patriarchy and like how, you know, women have been exploited. You know, a lot of women, they stay home, they take care of kids, or they work and they take care of their kids and they bring kids, like the, you know, the process of reproduction. And I think this is like exasperated and when it comes to like countries like in the Middle East, where a lot of these people, specifically like a lot of the places in the Middle East who that have been through war. So take Afghanistan, and then just with Afghanistan, all the countries that surrounding it are also not peaceful, because when one place is not in peace, when your neighborhood, when someone in your neighbor is experiencing violence, how can you feel safe or how can you feel like you can improve? So a lot of the countries surrounding Afghanistan are also definitely experiencing that. Lack of infrastructure, lack of education, lack of awareness have caused a lot of these people and a lot of women be to not have as many opportunities to, you know, stand up for themselves or get jobs or work. And I think that's why there is, when it comes to climate change or when it comes to like displacement or food insecurity, women are being affected by it more.
Mhm.
Especially if you think of a mother, she would be feeding her kids first. If she's experiencing food insecurity, she would be feeding her kids first before she would be feeding herself. And
Mm.
like especially in countries in the like Middle East, every woman, like the minute um they hit puberty, they get engaged and they get married. Like they age, even in the US, it's a very common thing, you know, girls like marrying young and then they have kids and then they have to take care of the kids. And then if they are experiencing displacement, if you're moving from one place to another, it's always the woman taking care of the kids. It's always the woman feeding the kids, always the woman worrying about the kid.
Yeah.
There are very few instances where the man can also contribute, but I think as a society as a whole, like removing climate change, women are already
Mm.
carrying so much of the burden. But when you bring in another external factor,
Yeah.
that gets magnified, specifically when you are already dealing with like so many other problems within your own society, where the government is not helping, the government is not providing assistance, or you don't have a stable government. I mean, just think of Iraq or Syria. I'm thinking they have experienced so much war and just like disparities. Women there, I don't know what they like, how they are dealing with these issues, especially if a flood comes and your house is gone. What do you do? And
Mm.
this is because of the sea rise level. So I think the issues are a lot more, but I think in the US, women have more opportunities to be able to create. Um, it's definitely not where it should be, but comparing it to the Middle East, women do have opportunities. And I think that's where I think it should, these women should be advocating for the women there as well.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm very like, I want to refrain from saying like feminism. I think I'm more of an intersectional feminist. Like we need to be thinking about women of color, black women, brown women. We can't just be thinking about white woman feminism, which is very common in the US. I've seen it a lot. And we focus so much more about appearances of women rather than the problems and the issues they're facing, the real life experiences they're facing. So
Mm.
I think that's something that I would like all the women and men who call themselves feminists to be focusing on.